Hello, and welcome to Simplilearn's ITIL 2011 Intermediate Lifecycle course on Continual Service Improvement Certification course. This is the introductory lesson provided by Simplilearn on Continual Service Improvement, CSI. I am Alex, and I will be with you throughout this e-learning session. This course consists of 9 learning units apart from this introductory lesson. Therefore, it is important that you go through this lesson before accessing the remaining 9 learning units. So what are we waiting for? Let's begin with the introductory lesson agenda. We will first begin with the objective of this lesson, followed by a few recap topics that you might have covered during your ITIL foundation level. The topics we will cover are ITIL Basic Introduction, ITIL Intermediate, and its relevant topics. This is followed by information about the Accreditation Institute, CSI course description, and its objective. We will then look at who can attend this course. Next, moving to the exam section, we will learn about the exam prerequisites, or say the eligibility criteria for attending this course, exam format, and exam tips to help you achieve this certification. Lastly, we will look at the CSI course outline and the duration required for each learning unit, and detail about the quiz provided by Simplilearn at the end of each learning unit. So go ahead and experience this courseware. The objectives of this introductory lesson is to educate you on the courseware that Simplilearn offers, help you on how this online course works, ensure that you are aware of all the topics and subtopics covered in this course. Let us begin with ITIL definition and its benefits. ITIL is the most widely adopted approach for IT service management in the world. It provides a practical, no-nonsense framework for identifying, planning, delivering, and supporting IT services to the business. Adopting ITIL can offer users a huge range of benefits that include improved IT services, reduced costs, improved customer satisfaction through a more professional approach to service delivery, improved productivity, improved use of skills and experience, and improved delivery of third-party service. We will now study more about ITIL under the topic Foundation Basics at the end of this lesson. Let us now understand the ITIL Intermediate, which is the next level in the ITIL certification. ITIL 2011 Intermediate Level is the next level after ITIL Foundation. ITIL Intermediate Level has a modular structure, with each module focusing on different aspects of ITIL. They are Service Lifecycle and Service Capability. The intermediate modules focuses more on detail-oriented study than the foundation level, and is an industry-recognized qualification. Well, on completion of your ITIL foundation, and prior choosing this course, the thought about how one can become an ITIL expert must have crossed your mind. Let's get the answer to this in the next slide. Let us have a brief look at the ITIL certification path. The diagram in the slide is a graphical depiction of the ITIL certification path. ITIL certification path is based on credit point system. That is, you need to accumulate 9 credit points at each stage till the expert. ITIL Foundation is the first certification which gives you 2 credit points on certification. On completion of the foundation level, you become eligible to appear for intermediate level, where you can choose from 2 streams. 1. Lifecycle, and 2. Capability. The lifecycle modules have all the standard 5 lifecycle phases as exams, which provide 3 credits each. Capability modules are more focused towards implementation content and have 4 exams which provide 4 credits each. You can choose any one of the modules from either streams or make a combination on the basis of your experience in the industry. Thus, at this level, the minimum credit requirement is 15. Once you accumulate 15 points plus 2 of foundation, that is, 17 credit points makes you eligible for third level. That is, MALC, which provides you 5 credit points. Once you are certified MALC, your final score credit becomes 22. To become an ITIL expert, there is no separate exam. You need to accumulate 22 credits to become an ITIL expert. I'm sure we are clear on the certification path. Let us understand the service lifecycle and its modules in the next slide. The service lifecycle modules are for candidates who aspire to handle a management or team lead role, which requires a broad management focus on ITIL practice areas. It is also for candidates who work or coordinate across teams or manages multiple capability areas. The different modules under service lifecycle are 1. Service strategy, SS. 2. Service design, SD. 3. Service transition, ST. 4. Service operation, SO. 5. Continual service improvement, CSI. Similarly, let's understand service capability in the next slide. Service capability modules are for the candidates who aspire to specialize in process-level knowledge in one or more processes, which focuses more on day-to-day execution. The different modules under service capability are 1. Service offerings and agreements, SOA. 2. Release, control and validation, RCV. 3. Operational support and analysis, OSA. 4. Planning, protection and optimization. As we have an understanding of both the streams, let us understand the differences between them in the next slide. Here is the difference between the lifecycle and capability. If you observe, you will see that lifecycle mainly is phase-oriented, whereas capability is process-oriented. Also, lifecycle focuses on individuals who work on the process, whereas capability focuses on individuals who are in the process. Take a few minutes to learn about the differences on this slide. Once you are done, move on to learn about MALC. Managing across the lifecycle is the last step in achieving the ITIL Expert Certification. Therefore, it is mainly focused on individuals who want to become ITIL experts. On completing MALC, an individual can apply the ITIL knowledge, and it provides skills that can be used in the workplace in a tangible way. We have already discussed on the credit system in the certification path slide. However, just to mention, the MALC certification gives you 5 credit points. Now, let us proceed to look at the Accreditation Institute for ITIL in the next slide. The governing body for ITIL 2011 Foundation and Intermediate is the Cabinet Office, UK. Simplilearn is accredited by APMG and TUV as an ITIL Foundation and Intermediate training provider. Also, Simplilearn is an accredited examination center, AEC, by APMG, TUV and EXIN to conduct these exams. So, this has been our basic introduction on ITIL. Let us now focus on the CSI course description and objective in the coming slides. Continual Service Improvement, CSI, Certificate is a freestanding qualification, but it is also part of the ITIL Intermediate Lifecycle stream, and one of the modules that leads to the ITIL Expert Certificate in IT Service Management. The purpose of this training module and the associated exam and certificate is, respectively, to impart, test, and validate the knowledge on industry practices in service management, as documented in the ITIL Continual Service Improvement publication. Let's understand the objective of this course in the next slide. The objective of the CSI course is to provide a complete management level overview of continual service improvement, including all its related activities. Candidates can expect to gain competencies in the following upon successful completion of the education and examination components related to this certification. Introduction to Continual Service Improvement. Continual Service Improvement Principles. Continual Service Improvement Process. Continual Service Improvement Methods and Techniques. Organizing for Continual Service Improvement. Technology Considerations. Implementing Continual Service Improvement. Challenges, Critical Success Factors, and Risks. We will discuss each topic in detail in the course outline. Let us now look at the candidates who can opt for this certification in the next slide. The course syllabus covers the management level concepts and core information of the activities and techniques within Continual Service Improvement, but not specific details about each of the supporting processes. The main target group for the ITIL Intermediate Qualification. Continual Service Improvement includes, but is not restricted to, Chief Information Officers, CIOs, Chief Technology Officers, CTOs, Managers, Supervisory Staff, Team Leaders, Service Designers, IT Architects, IT Planners, IT Consultants, IT Audit Managers, and IT Security Managers. Let's continue to discuss this in the next slide. Apart from the candidates specified in the previous slide, professionals in the following roles can also attend this course. They are ITSM trainers involved in ongoing management, coordination, and integration of design activities within the service lifecycle. Individuals who require a detailed understanding of the ITIL Continual Service Improvement stage of the ITIL service lifecycle and how it may be implemented to enhance the quality of IT service provision within an organization. IT professionals working within or about to enter a continual service environment and requiring an understanding of the concepts, processes, functions, and activities involved. Individuals who have attained the ITIL Foundation Certificate in IT Service Management and wish to advance to a higher level of ITIL certifications. Individuals seeking the ITIL Expert Certificate in IT Service Management, for which this qualification can be one of the prerequisite modules. Individuals seeking progress towards the ITIL Master Certificate in IT Service Management, for which the ITIL Expert is a prerequisite. Let us look at the exam prerequisites for this course in the next slide. To be eligible for the ITIL Intermediate Continual Service Improvement qualification, candidates shall fulfill the following requirements. At least 21 contact hours of instruction, excluding breaks, with an accredited training organization, ATO, or an accredited e-learning solution, for this syllabus, as part of a formal, approved training course scheme. A basic IT literacy and around 2 years of IT experience are highly desirable. Hold the ITIL Foundation Certificate in IT Service Management or other appropriate earlier ITIL and Bridge qualifications. It is also recommended that students should complete at least 21 hours of personal study by reviewing the syllabus and the ITIL Continual Service Improvement publication in preparation for the examination, specifically Service Management as a Practice. ITIL 2011 Continual Service Improvement exam consists of 8 multiple-choice questions, which will be scenario-based, gradient-scored questions. Each question will have 4 possible answer options, one of which is worth 5 marks, one which is worth 3 marks, one which is worth 1 mark, and one which is a distractor and achieves no marks. The duration of the exam is 90 minutes. As a prerequisite, you need to have an ITIL 2011 Foundation Certificate or ITIL V4 Foundation Certificate plus Bridge Certificate and completion of an accredited course from an ITIL accredited training provider. It is a supervised exam and closed book. You need to acquire a minimum pass score of 28 right answers out of 40 questions, or score 70% in the exam. The next slide talks about exam tips. Here are a few exam tips that will help you overcome the examination as well as score good pass percentage. Please take a few minutes to learn about these tips on the slide. Once you have finished with the exam tips, move to the next slide on the CSI course outline. Let me give you an overview of all the learning units of this tutorial. In all, we have 9 learning units, including the introductory lesson, which we will be completing in a few minutes. Let's look at the other learning units now. Learning Unit 1 talks about the introduction to continual service improvement. This learning unit will cover and introduce you to the concepts and terminology used in the field of continual service improvement. Purpose, objectives, scope, functions, and value to business is discussed in this learning unit. Learning Unit 2 talks about the continual service improvement principles. This learning unit will help you to understand, describe, identify, demonstrate, apply, distinguish, produce, decide or analyze the basic aspects of the guiding principles of continual service improvement. Learning Unit 3 talks about the continual service improvement processes. It will cover the managerial and supervisory aspects of the ITIL processes covered in the continual service improvement stage. Learning Unit 4 covers the continual service improvement methods and techniques. This learning unit provides a wide variety of methods and techniques that can be used in the CSI activities ranging from soft and vague to factual and scientific, often providing either both or a mixture of qualitative and quantitative measurement results. Learning Unit 5 talks about organizing for continual service improvement. This learning unit covers various aspects to be considered while implementing CSI. Learning Unit 6 explains a technology consideration. This unit will help you to understand technology as part of implementing CSI process capabilities. You will also go through the special technology functions and features that relate to CSI practices. Learning Unit 7 explains the implementation considerations of continual service improvement. This learning unit will help you to understand how implementation and improvement considerations contribute to continual service improvement. Learning Unit 8 discusses the challenges, critical success factor, and risks. This module will help you to understand how implementation considerations contribute to continual service improvement also. What are the challenges, critical success factors, and risks associated with continual service improvement? Learning Unit 9 is the last learning unit, that is, the summary, exam preparation, and directed. In this learning unit, we will summarize the material covered in the previous units and prepare you for the examination. We will be conducting a mock examination as part of the delivery of this course. Let us now understand about the quiz questions given by Simplilearn in this tutorial. In this tutorial, at the end of each learning unit, quiz questions are provided by Simplilearn. This is to help you to assess your knowledge on the completion of each learning unit. The question pattern would be an objective type, with an explanation to the right answer, and each learning unit will consist of sample case studies and sample test papers from APMG. Apart from these exercises, a glossary for your reference will be provided at the end of this course. Please note, to move from one learning unit to another, you need to complete these quiz questions with the right answers. Let us proceed to recap on some of the definitions and terms used in ITIL. The next section is on Foundation Basics. Well, this section is provided to help you refresh the learnings from ITIL Foundation. Here we will discuss about service, service management, functions, and processes of CSI lifecycle. Before I drill down more on continual service improvement, I will first explain the concept of good practices and the importance of them. Organizations operate in dynamic environments with the need to learn and adapt. There is a need to improve performance while managing trade-offs. Under similar pressure, customers seek advantage from service providers. They pursue sourcing strategies that best serve their own business interest. In many countries, government agencies and non-profit organizations have a similar propensity to outsource for the sake of operational effectiveness. This puts additional pressure on service providers to maintain a competitive advantage with respect to the alternatives that customers may have. The increase in outsourcing has particularly exposed internal service providers to unusual competition. To cope with the pressure, organizations benchmark themselves against peers and seek to close gaps in capabilities. One way to close such gaps is the adoption of good practices in wide industrial use. There are several sources for good practices, including public frameworks, standards, and the proprietary knowledge of organizations and individuals. Good practices permit organizations to operate in dynamic environments with the need to learn and adapt, improve performance while managing trade-offs, benchmark using industry good practices to differentiate themselves against peers to close gaps in capabilities. Let us move on to our next slide. Definition of service. In our last slide, we discussed about the concept of good practices and the importance of them. This slide explains the term service. We need to understand the basics of the concept of service and value. This makes me ask a question. What is a service? What is our understanding of the service? Service is defined as services are means of delivering value to customers by facilitating outcomes customers want to achieve without the ownership of specific costs and risks. We can refer to anything around us in this universe as service. Let's take an example of the rooms around you. Take anything in that room, right from the smallest item to the biggest. Now think about the item you choose and see any item that you choose serves some purpose to you, and it has been provided by seller who manufactures this item to fulfill the same purpose of yours. Here, the item you choose is your service. Manufacturer is the service provider, and you who utilize the service are the customer. Service provider helps the customers to be free and to focus on what they consider to be their core competence from the customer's perspective. Value consists of two primary elements: utility or fitness for purpose, and warranty or fitness for use. Let us move on to our next slide. Definition of service management. In our last slide, we discussed about the concept of service. This slide explains the concept of service management. Service management is a set of specialized organizational capabilities for providing value to customers in the form of services. The capabilities take the form of functions and processes for managing services over a life cycle, with specializations in strategy, design, transition, operation, and continual improvement. The capabilities represent a service organization's capacity, competency, and confidence for action. The act of transforming resources into valuable service is at the core of service management. Without these capabilities, a service organization is merely a bundle of resources that by itself has relatively low intrinsic value for customers. Let us move on to our next slide. Benefits of IT service management. In our last slide, we discussed about the concept of service management. This slide explains the benefits of IT service management. IT service management has following benefits: improved quality of service and service availability, leading to improved business productivity and revenue. IT service continuity procedures more focused. Clearer view of current IT capability and future potential of IT services. Better information on current services. Greater flexibility for the business through improved understanding of IT support enhanced customer satisfaction. Increased flexibility and adaptability within the IT services. Improvements in security, accuracy, speed, availability. Improved cycle time for changes and success rate. Let us move on to our next slide. Benefits of IT service management. In continuation to our last slide, this slide further explains the benefits of IT service management. IT service management has the following benefits. Common language from as is to be. More effective governance and control. Improved service levels. Catering the services that meet customer demands. Have common, integrated, and centralized processes. Well-defined roles and responsibilities. Identifying those processes that can be leveraged. Improved strategic and financial health. Competitive advantage. Let us move on to our next slide. Benefits of IT service management. In continuation to our last slide, this slide further explains the benefits of IT service management. IT service management has the following benefits. Operating costs will decrease. Profit margins will improve. Efficiency will improve. Service quality will be constantly improving. The IT department will become more effective. Organization becomes more responsive to changes in business direction. Let us move on to our next slide. Service Management Pictorial View. In our last slide, we learned the benefits of IT service management. This slide explains the pictorial view of service management. Let us understand the concept of service assets, resources, and capabilities. Now let me ask you, what does the IT service do? The answer would be, they enhance the performance of those customer assets to deliver better or increased business outcomes, and hence delivers business value. How does the IT service provider deliver these services? It is by effective use of service assets, their resources and capabilities. So in this context, service assets are the resources and capabilities of the service provider, service provider's assets, that are utilized to deliver the IT services to the business customer. Customer assets are the resources and capabilities of the customer's assets, that are utilized to deliver business outcomes. These assets make use of the IT services to enhance their performance or to remove some constraints. Here, it is important that the service provider has to define a service always in connection to the specific customer assets to which the utility of the service is delivered to. Let us move on to our next slide. Utility and warranty. In our last slide, we learned the service assets, resources, and capabilities. This slide explains the concept of utility and warranty. Here, we will discuss about creating the value. Now, when we say service is the means of delivering value to the customers, then how do we deliver value? What does value contain? Can we quantify the value? I say that we can understand this concept with the utility and warranty model. From the customer's perspective, value consists of two primary elements: utility or fitness for purpose, and warranty or fitness for use. Utility is perceived by the customer from the attributes of the service that have a positive effect on the performance of tasks, associated with desired outcomes. Removal or relaxation of constraints on performance is also perceived as a positive effect. Warranty is derived from the positive effect being available when needed, insufficient capacity or magnitude, and dependably in terms of continuity and security. Utility is what the customer gets, and warranty is how it is delivered. Customers cannot benefit from anything that is fit for purpose but not fit for use, and vice versa. It is useful to separate the logic of utility from the logic of warranty for the purpose of design, development, and improvement. Considering all the separate controllable inputs allows for a wider range of solutions to a problem of creating, maintaining, and increasing value. Remember, absolute quantification of value is not possible. Let us move on to our next slide. Utility and warranty continued. In our last slide, we learned the concept of utility and warranty. This slide explains the concept of utility and warranty in graphical format. Let us move on to our next slide. Process functions. In our last slide, we learned the concept of utility and warranty. This slide explains the concept of processes and functions. Now this slide explains, as a service provider, how to deliver value to customers. The service provider has to execute certain activities in order to deliver the value to customers in the form of service. This starts from understanding what the customer wants, or, say, understand customer expectations. Customer expectations lead to define a specific set of activities which are to be executed by the people in order to deliver value. These specialized set of activities are termed as a process. The process is defined as a set of activities designed to accomplish a specific objective. A process takes to define inputs and turns them into defined outputs. A process may include roles, responsibilities, tools, and management controls required to deliver the outputs. We also need to learn the basic characteristics of any process. The characteristics of the process are that it is measurable. It delivers specific results as expected by customers. Primary result as agreed with customers are delivered to customers or stakeholders, and it responds to specific events or triggers. Now let us understand the concept of functions. Functions typically define roles and the associated authority and responsibility for a specific performance and outcomes. Coordination between functions through shared processes is a common pattern in organization design. Functions tend to optimize their work methods locally to focus on assigned outcomes. Poor coordination between functions combined with an inward focus leads to functional silos that hinder alignment and feedback critical to the success of the organization as a whole. Well-defined processes can improve productivity within and across functions. Now we have covered the concepts of service, value, value creation, model, and processes executed by the service provider for delivering value to the customer. Let us move on to our next slide. ITIL History. In our last slide, we learned the concept of processes and functions. This slide explains the history of ITIL. It all started in the 1980s when the British government determined that the level of IT service quality provided to them was not sufficient. Thus they hired an organization to survey to find out the best practices of the IT service providers. The Central Computer and Telecommunications Agency, CCTA, were tasked with developing a framework for efficient and financially responsible use of IT resources within the British government and the private sector. The collection of these practices was originally called GITIM, Government Information Technology Infrastructure Management. Dozens of books were published, but later it was realized that this collection needed integration. In the 1990s, framework started to gain popularity. Large companies and government agencies in Europe adopted the framework very quickly. Let's move on to our next slide. ITIL History continued. In continuation to our last slide, this slide also explains the concept of history of ITIL. Later in the year 2000, version 2 was published. The service support and service delivery books were redeveloped into more concise, usable volumes. In the year 2001, the CCTA merged into the Office of Government Commerce, OGC. BS 15000 standard was published by the BSI. In the year 2005, ISO 20000 standard was published to complement the framework. In the year 2007, version 3 was published, a lifecycle approach to service management with greater emphasis on IT business integration. In the year 2011, version 3 edition 2011 published, Service Strategy Revamped, BRM, Design Coordinator added and other changes were included, looking at the current changes in the organizations across the globe. Let us move on to our next slide. ITIL processes, functions across lifecycle. In our last slide, we understood the history of ITIL. This slide explains the concept of ITIL process, functions across the lifecycle. The ITIL core consists of 5 publications. Each provides the guidance necessary for an integrated approach as required by the ISO IEC 20000 standard specification. Service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, continual service improvement. Let us move on to our next slide. Service owner, process owner. In our last slide, we understood process, functions across the lifecycle. This slide explains the concept of service owner, process owner. Service owner is the person who is accountable for the delivery of a specific IT service. They are responsible for continual improvement and management of change affecting services under their care. Example, the owner of the payroll service. Process owner, the person responsible for ensuring the process is fit for the desired purpose and is accountable for the outputs of that process. Example, the owner for the availability management process. Let us move on to our next slide. ITIL 2011 core publication. In our last slide, we understood the concept of service owner, process owner. This slide explains the concept of ITIL publication. ITIL has the following components. The ITIL core, best practice guidance applicable to all types of organizations who provide services to a business. The ITIL complementary guidance, a complementary set of publications with guidance specific to industry sectors, organization types, operating models, and technology architectures. The ITIL core consists of 5 publications, Figure 1.2. Each provides the guidance necessary for an integrated approach as required by the ISO IEC 20000 standard specification. Service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, continual service improvement. Each publication addresses capabilities having direct impact on a service provider's performance. The structure of the core is in the form of a life cycle. It is iterative and multidimensional. It ensures organizations are set up to leverage capabilities in one area for learning and improvement in others. The ITIL core is expected to provide structure, stability, and strength to service management capabilities with durable principles, methods, and tools. This serves to protect investments and provide the necessary basis for measurement, learning, and improvement. The guidance in ITIL can be adapted for use in various business environments and organizational strategies. The ITIL complementary guidance provides flexibility to implement the core in a diverse range of environments. Let us move on to our next slide. This marks the end of our introductory lesson. Let's do a quick recap of what we learned so far. In this lesson, we learnt about what is ITIL, ITIL Intermediate, definition of service lifecycle, and capability. We also got some information about the ITIL Intermediate examination format itself, and looked at the prerequisite of taking up the examination. Finally, we covered the objective, eligible candidates, and syllabus of CSI and foundation basics. Hope you have a clear view of how the tutorial works. Thank you, and happy learning!